Now tonight we're talking about that first stage, story forming, how to put together a structure. And in this stage, there are 8 essential questions every author should be able to answer about his or her story. We'll cover the first 4 of those questions tonight and the second 4 next week. The first 4 questions pertain to the main character in your story. Now remember, the main character is not necessarily the protagonist or the traditional hero. If you've been following these classes, you know that Dramatica says a hero has different components. There's the protagonist who drives the story forward, and there's also the main character who represents the audience position in the story. Now, the character who drives the story forward, the one leading the charge, that doesn't always have to be the main character. The main character might be somebody more on the sidelines, an observer, or a minor participant, but represents where the audience is positioned to watch the drama unfold. You see, in real life, we're not always the person leading the charge, and therefore in stories, so too, the audience does not always have to be positioned at the heart of the action. They can be off to the side watching it, or only peripherally involved. But if you take a main character and you assign that to the same player in your drama that you assign the role of the protagonist, now you have the beginnings of a hero. You only have to add one more thing. You have to have the audience root for them. If they root for them, then they become the archetypical hero. The protagonist, who also represents the audience position in the story, who is also the one the audience roots for. Tonight we're not going to be talking about heroes, and we're not going to be talking about protagonists. We're not going to be talking about the plot-oriented stuff per se. We're going to be talking about the character who represents the audience in the story, the one with whom they most empathize, the one with whom they feel they either are standing in their shoes or right behind their shoulder watching things from their point of view. The 4 questions we're going to look at that every author should know, and we'll pepper these liberally with video clips. The main character resolve, change, or steadfast. The main character direction, which is now going to be called main character growth in updated versions of the software, and that's stop or start. The main character approach, doer or beer. And the main character mental sex, male or female. Now, main character mental sex is more accurate, but in the new upcoming version of Dramatica 4.0, we're going to let the accuracy slide just a little bit so we can make the terminology a lot more accessible. It's kind of a trade-off. The old terminology will still be there, and you can access it with a simple toggle switch in the software at any time. But you'll be able to see things with new terminology that's easier to understand. For example, main character mental sex will be called main character problem-solving technique, I think is what they finally determined. Main character problem-solving technique. And instead of male or female, it will be called linear or holistic. Now, that's not actually the complete truth. When it says male or female mental sex, it carries a lot more with it than just linear problem-solving or holistic problem-solving. In fact, women can solve problems linearly as well as men. It just might not be their first choice to do so, but they're quite capable of it. And similarly, a man could use holistic or intuitive problem solving just like a woman could, although it might not be his backyard. It might be a couple of yards over that he would use intuition. So using the terms linear and holistic, not quite as accurate. That's just a part of what's going on, but a lot more accessible. And it takes away some stigma that might be politically incorrect as well. So each of these we'll cover tonight with video clips to show you what this question is really asking. Main character resolve, does your main character change or do they remain steadfast? Main character direction, does your main character grow by stopping something or starting something? Main character approach, does your main character prefer to solve problems externally as a doer or internally as a beer? And main character mental sex or problem-solving technique, male or female, linear or holistic. Does your main character use a more linear approach or a more holistic approach to trying to resolve the problem?